Assalamu alaikum students. Article for today is Gauss's law, and basically Gauss's law is one of the very important laws in electrostatics, and for which purpose it is used. Basically, it is used to determine electric field intensity. We can determine electric field intensity using Coulomb's law, but as you have seen through different examples and numericals, that Coulomb's law is quite a complicated method to determine E. So Gauss's law is basically comparatively an easy method by drawing a Gaussian surface, and then we can determine E from Gauss's law. And Gauss's law basically builds up a relationship between electric flux and the charge which is enclosed by that particular surface. And the very important thing is permittivity, like permittivity of free space, and that means medium is important. That is the free space, that is epsilon naught. So we can develop a relationship between these three values when we will write the formula. Scientist who developed this formula was Gauss, and Gauss basically was a scientist, a German mathematician and scientist, and who contributed in the fields of geometry, geophysics, electrostatics, astronomy, optics, and so on, and different fields of mathematics as well. So now, for now, we are going to define Gauss's law. But before that, we are going to define that there is a limitation for Gauss's law, and this limitation says that it is only applicable to the closed surfaces. Like, we cannot determine E for surfaces which are open, right? We have to draw a closed surface, which is basically a Gaussian surface, and then we can determine that. So Gauss's law, I'm continuously taking the name of Gaussian surface. What is basically a Gaussian surface? Gaussian surface is a hypothetical surface, and it contains the point on which E has to be determined. So for this, we have taken a charge particle, and on that charge, we have to determine, there is a dot as well. And on this point, we have to determine electric field intensity. For this, we can see that we have drawn a Gaussian surface, and the Gaussian surface shows that basically it is covering the point which basically on that point which we have to determine the electric field. And what is the limitation? Limitation only shows that it is applicable for the closed surfaces and not for the open surfaces, right? So this is hypothetical, that is an imaginary surface which we draw by ourselves, and we know that flux cannot be determined for the curved surfaces. So a figure like this, in which we are having a spherical Gaussian surface, or you can say circular Gaussian surface, we have to divide this curved path into a number of different numbers of small patches, that is small areas, like a delta A1, delta A2, and delta A3, so on, as we did in our different topics, earlier topics. So by this method, we have divided the whole of the area into small number of areas, small number of delta areas, and for every delta area, that is for every delta A, limit approaches to zero, that is approaches to zero, and it is taken very small way. Here I have drawn two small patches, and we can draw it everywhere, because we have drawn this whole sphere into small number of patches. So we see that the direction of electric field is like this, and if I draw direction of area or normal on this particular surface, so both are having the same directions. When both are having the same direction, that means theta would be equal to 0. So I will write phi E equals to E dot delta A equals to E A cos of theta. And in this particular case, we see that theta equals to 0. For the other side, we have delta A like this, and the direction of E is in this direction. So I can write that theta is again equal to 0 degree. So for any patch where you will take, theta would be equal to 0 degree. So phi E is equal to EA, that is the maximum value, and cos 0 degree is equal to 1, right? So phi E1 for the first patch, it would be equal to E1 delta A1, and for the next patch, it would be E2 delta A2, and for the last one, it would be phi En delta an, right? So computing the final value, that is the whole value, taking the sum of all those values, what we get phi e equals to, we have to take the sum, and ultimately what we get, we have to put the values e1 delta a1 plus e2 delta a2 plus e3 delta a3 up to en delta an. And in this particular case, we see that magnitude of E is same throughout the surface, because the charge Q is same, and all the lines are emerging out from the same charge. And what about the direction? Direction of all would be outward, of all the fields would be, our field lines would be outward. So we can take E 1 equals to E2 equals to E3 and so on. So taking a common value, we have phi E equals to E delta A1 plus E delta A2 and so on up to delta AN. Now taking E as common, we have delta A1 inside the bracket up till delta AN. And we say that a summation would be applied over this whole area, as we did in our previous lectures. So we will apply a summation over here, and this summation would be for the whole surface, so delta A, and we can write it like this. Now we know the value of E is kq by r square, so we can write this value in the above equation. So phi E equals to kq by r square into summation into surface area, summation into for the whole surface of delta A, right? Yes, this is for the whole surface. Now we know that this summation for the whole surface area, this is basically the total area enclosed by the charge. So we can also write it like this, and this is a spherical surface, so I can write the 4 pi r square, which is basically the surface area of the sphere, right? So if I put the value of k, which is 1 over 4 pi epsilon naught, this would become, this equation would become like this, and there would be cancellation, and ultimately what would be left, there would be phi e equals to q over epsilon naught. And this is basically the formula for Gauss's law, right? And it shows that phi e is directly proportional to q and inversely proportional to the permittivity of free space, and it does not depend upon the shape or geometry of the surface. It does not depend upon that. It is independent of the factor. It only depends upon q and epsilon naught, right? So coming towards the next thing, that consider if we are having an asymmetric figure, and there are a number of charges like q1, q2, q3, and up to so on, qn number of charges are there. So there would be electric field for every charge, right? I'm drawing this electric field, and it every charge would have its own electric field, right? So there would be direction of electric field lines as shown in the figure, right? So for phi e, for there would be phi e for every charge particle, so we have to calculate phi e for every charge particle. So when I calculate phi e for every charge particle, it would be like the previous case. I will calculate phi for every charge particle, and then we'll take the sum of it. So for the first charge, it will become q1. Yes, for every charge particle, we have to calculate this phi e equals to q over epsilon naught, right? And that would value would be phi e1, like phi e2, and so on up to phi en. Now if I put the values, it will become q1 over epsilon naught plus q2 over epsilon for this whole surface. We are talking about this whole surface, so we get this equation. Now we see that 1 over epsilon naught can be taken as common, and some applying summation over q, lower limit 1 up to the upper limit, which is n, we apply this on q. Now, why this I comes? Just a general subscript we have given it to it, and phi equals to 1 over epsilon naught into q, which is basically the Gauss's laws formula, and it is again applicable on the curved surfaces or for number of charges as well, or for any asymmetric figures. Like, now coming towards the application of the Gauss's law, the first application is basically no charge inside the conductor. That means if you are taking any kind of conductor, there would be no charge inside that particular conductor. Consider we are having a sphere and there is a positive charge sprinkled over it, and this charge is basically on the surface of that particular sphere metallic conductor, and we have to find on this particular point, we have to determine E on this particular point P, right? So how can we determine that? We see that E, what would be the value of E? So we determine, we have drawn a Gaussian surface, right? This is basically the Gaussian surface, and we have drawn this Gaussian surface, and now how can I determine E on the point P? So for this particular method, what would I do? I say that in within this Gaussian surface or at point P, there is no charge, right? There is no charge inside the conductor but outside the conductor, right? So Q inside the conductor is equal to 0. Then by Gauss's law, phi equals to q over epsilon naught, putting q equals to 0, what would be the value of phi? It would be definitely 0, right? So in this case we say that the total electric flux would be equal to 0 inside the metallic conductor, right? And phi E, there's another formula for it, that is E dot A, and at this particular point we see if the value from the above equation it is 0, then there can be two cases: either E equals to 0, right, or the second condition would be A equals to 0. As we know, area cannot be equal to 0, so the only thing which can be equal to 0, it's basically E. So we say that inside the metallic conductor there is no electric field intensities. Reason behind, because when Q equals to 0, E is also equals to 0 inside the metallic conductor, right? So this is basically the first application of Gauss's law, in which we say that the whole charge is basically sprinkled over the surface. Now if we take a surface which is basically an asymmetric surface and sprinkle some charge over the surface, then again taking a point P, and we have to determine E on this particular point, again the same thing goes on, and we say that E inside the conductor would be equal to 0. This thing would again be applicable if I take a hollow sphere, right? Now if I take a hollow sphere, what would happen? And I have taken any point, like again a P point inside that particular hollow sphere, which is again a metallic conductor, and outside that charge we have sprinkled a positive charge, and we have to determine on this particular point P, we have to determine E. So again the same situation, by drawing the Gaussian surface and doing again a whole of this method, what we get, E equals to 0. After doing the same procedure, what we conclude, that E equals to 0. There is another case in which we can take a metallic ring. There is a charge particle Q which is placed in the center, and we have drawn a metallic ring. Yes, there is a metallic ring, and this ring basically is having okay, so the charge particle would definitely having field lines in outward direction. There would be, yes, there would, what would happen in the that particular metal ring, what would happen, that all of the charges of that particular ring will accumulate, right? The negative charges will accumulate towards the positive because of electrostatic induction, and all of the positive charges will be like gathered on the other side. Like, I can draw it separately, and I can show it to you that consider this kind of situation, right? And all of the negative charges will accumulate because of electrostatic induction and all of the positive charges will definitely gather on the other side, right? So the field would be all the field lines would be again coming out of that particular metallic ring, but from the outer side, right? So in short, we see that inside that metallic ring, there again there is no charge, and in this particular case E would also be equal to 0. Now coming towards the second application of Gauss's law, which basically says E due to an infinite sheet of charge, we have to determine. Like they're mentioning infinite sheet of charge. What does that mean? That means there's if infinite sheet of charge, but how would we draw an infinite thing? So we have taken a finite portion of an infinite sheet of charge carrying a positive charge, and there are a lot of positive charge, and we have drawn a Gaussian surface in the cylindrical form, right? We have drawn a cylindrical form of Gaussian surface, which is having two end faces, yes, and a curved side, right? The one thing is curved and the two end faces which are basically flat, right? So what would happen? We have to determine E, sorry, on this particular point P, right? And how can we determine that electric field intensity, or the value of electric field intensity? We have to determine the flux as well, right? So to determine the value of flux on this particular point P, we have to find the total flux, which is basically acting on this Gaussian surface. So we are having three sides of this Gaussian surface, which is basically in the form of a cylinder. For the first side, phi E1 would be equal to, for the first side, I would write it would be E dot A, and it would be EA cos theta. Now the question arises, what would be the value of theta, right? So for this particular case, we have drawn on this particular end phase, we have drawn a normal which shows for side 1, and this is the side 2. So for this particular end phase, what we have direction of A, and E, that is the direction again in the direction of A. So I can write 0-degree angle, and the value of flux for this side would be EA, right? Now for the second side, now the second end phase, we see that the direction of A is towards the right side, and the direction of electric field intensity is also towards the right side, because it would be outward field, because the positive charges are there, so angle would again be 0-degree. So we get the result EA, right? And now for the third side is basically that curved side. Like consider this marker, like this is the cylindrical form. We are having two end faces which are basically flat, and this is again the flat surface, but this is a curved surface, right? Curved surface. So for this curved surface, I would draw a patch over here, and I draw a normal on that patch. It would be the direction of that would be outward, like towards you, right? And the direction of electric field is either towards the left side or the right side, and yes, towards the left or the right side. And what would be the angle now? It would be 90-degree. Now consider we are having a patch on this particular place, right? Like on this particular point we are considering at delta A. So for this particular point, we have the direction of area towards the forward direction, and E would be in the left side. So again the angle would be equal to 90-degree, right? You can take any of the side. If you're taking it in the forward direction and E in this direction, again the angle would be 90-degree. If you're taking it in the downward direction, E is having direction towards the left or right, again the angle would be equal to 90-degree. So for any point, if you are taking on the curved surface, for this particular case we are having theta equals to 90 degrees, so flux would be equal to 0. Calculating the total flux, it would be EA plus 0. So the total flux in this case would be 2EA, right? So we have calculated the total flux offered experienced by this Gaussian surface, right? Then we have another formula, flux by Gauss's law, and that value is basically Q over epsilon naught, right? So q over epsilon naught, and we see there's another term that we are going to, a new term which we are going to discuss, is basically surface charge density. Surface charge density represented by sigma is basically defined as charge per unit area, right? Is it this surface charge density, by name it says that any surface which is having a particular density of charges per unit area, that is basically known as surface charge density, represented by sigma. So sigma's value is basically q by a, and if I want to know the value of q from this particular equation, it would be like sigma a. I want to calculate this value of q, then it would be sigma a, right? So putting the value of q, which is sigma a divided by epsilon naught, right? So now we are having two equations for phi, and now we will compare both of the equations, right? So comparing the two equations, one was that was 2ea, and the other equation was q sigma a over epsilon naught. So comparing the two equations, we get 2ea equals to sigma a over epsilon naught, and a can be cancelled out. We want to get the value of e, so taking it in the one side and rest of the values on the other side. So the value of e is equals to sigma over 2 epsilon naught, and its vectorial form can be represented as like this, having a r unit vector which shows the direction of e, that is electric field intensity. Now coming towards the third application of Gauss's law, which is basically E between the two oppositely charged parallel plates, right? So we have taken two parallel plates, one with the positive charges, another with the negative charges, and the field definitely in the downward direction. And there is a point in the center, that P point, on which we have to determine E. Like we have to determine E on this particular point. So there is no such kind of surface, so we are drawing a Gaussian surface in the form of a rectangle, and P's point is basically lying on the Gaussian surface, and this is basically a rectangular Gaussian surface. Now we have to determine flux of experienced by this Gaussian surface. So to determine that, what would we do? We are basically having four sides, right? So four sides of the Gaussian surface, and we will calculate the flux of experienced by the Gaussian surface, total flux. So for the first side I'm going to take for this Gaussian surface is basically um, this one. I'm naming it as one. Now for this particular surface, what would be the direction of area? To in the upward direction, right? So we can write 0 degree over here, but the main problem over here is that E is equal to 0, because this side is lying inside the metallic plate, and we have read in the first application that inside the metallic conductor there is no charge. When there is no charge, there is no electric field intensity. E equals to 0, that means flux is equal to 0. Now coming towards the second side and drawing a surf yes, and ea cos theta, and for the second side, that there is a perpendicular drawn on the surface having direction a. I'm naming it as a, and the direction of electric field lines is downside, so we see there is an angle of 90 degree. So I'm putting the value of theta. The value is 90 degree, so ea cos 90 degree, answer is 0. For the third side, which is basically this one, I'm drawing areas direction, yes, by drawing a normal, and the direction of electric field lines is downside, so angle again would be equal to 90 degree, and we get the result equal to 0. Now the fourth side, oh yes, I'm drawing the normal over here, and we see that the direction of normal for this particular surface and the direction of electric field lines is the same. So in this particular case, the value of theta would be equal to 0 degree, and when this is 0 degree, so we get the maximum flux, right? So computing the total flux offered by the Gaussian surface would be equal to 0 plus 0 plus 0, and lastly EA. So the total value is basically EA. Now, Gauss's according to Gauss's law, what would be the value of flux, which is basically Q over epsilon naught, and putting the value of Q, surface charge density, into area divided by epsilon naught. Now we are having again two values for flux, and comparing the two values, what we get, we have EA equals to sigma A over epsilon naught, and we want the value of E. Yes, A would be cancelled out, so we get the value sigma over epsilon naught, and the vectorial form is shown with R unit vector, which shows the direction of electric field intensity. So this was the lecture for today. Thank you so much.